something is off about the sky. It's foggy and yellow, like the kind that warns a tornado is coming, but there is no bad weather in the forecast. We thought this odd, considering it was the middle of July and we live in California. Rain in the summertime is rare, but the sky just looks off. We stood on the balcony of our home for a few minutes, looking out to the backyard, silently sipping coffee and taking in the morning. Then went on with our regular daily schedules. I work for a small brewery in the sales department, and my wife is an English teacher at the high school. We lead relatively boring lives, home by 6 and in bed by 10, occasionally going out on a Thursday night for drinks with friends. We're safe people and like to live by the rules. "Honey, can you see if I left my black shoes by the door?" My wife called down from our bedroom. I set my spatula down and walked over to the back door. "Yep, right here," I called back up. I returned to my eggs and finished making breakfast. This was our normal morning routine. I made breakfast for my wife, who leaves the house very early, then go on a run. She flew downstairs and apologized for taking her meal to go. "Late," was all she said as she grabbed a paper plate and kissed me on the cheek. "Love you," she called back to me halfway out the door. "Love you too," I replied to the closed door. I washed up the dishes and put on my running shoes, grabbing my headphones as I walked out the door. Early morning runs are my favorite time of day. It's so quiet, the city not quite awake yet. I started my playlist and headed down the driveway to my favorite jogging path a few blocks away. It was more humid than usual, and the sky was still spooky. I passed the usual people on the trail, giving tense smiles as I focused on my breathing. All was fine, until I tripped over something and hit the ground hard. "What the hell?" I murmured as I drew my knee up to examine the quickly bleeding gash. I looked around to see what I had tripped on and saw a leg sticking out of the bushes lining the path. I stood up and peeked over the top of the bushes. There was a teenage kid laying down, staring straight up at the sky, unblinking, with a creepy grin on his face. I nudged his leg with my foot. "Hey kid, are you alright?" I asked. He didn't move, only smiled wider. His pupils were completely dilated, and he had dried blood on his upper lip, like his nose had been bleeding. "Check out the full moon," he whispered. Confused, I glanced up at the foggy sky. "The clouds are too thick, and it's 7:30 in the morning," I told the kid. "It's a beauty," he responded, and continued staring upward. I looked around for help, but the trail was empty. I pulled my phone out of my pocket and dialed 911. I quickly explained the situation, that there was a kid laying down under some bushes and something seemed really off. The dispatcher asked me to stay with him until someone arrived. A few minutes later, I saw a pair of police officers walk around the corner, heading over to us. "What's going on here?" one of them asked. "I don't really know, sir," I replied. "I was jogging and tripped over his foot," I explained, showing him my bloody knees. They knelt down and started checking out the kid, trying to get him to talk. "Has he been responsive?" the other asked. "Not really. He told me to look at the moon, but that's all he's done," I said. They both shot straight up and looked at me. "What were his exact words?" they asked at the same time. I stammered, suddenly nervous. "He said to look at the full moon or something like that. I don't remember." One of them knelt back down and mumbled something into his radio. "Thank you, sir. Have a nice day," the other said, and kneeled down next to his partner. You're welcome," I said, as I started limping down the path back towards my house. I texted my wife and briefly told her what happened. She texted back almost immediately, saying that it was one of her students that had been missing since the morning before. "I'm glad you found him. His parents were a wreck when they called this morning to see if he'd shown up to class," she texted. I made my way home and showered the blood and dirt off my knees, then slapped some band-aids on. It was Friday, my day off. Saturdays were our busy days at the brewery, so I kicked up my feet and turned on the TV, ready to relax before my busy weekend. The news popped up with a message saying that there would be a citywide curfew of 8:30 p.m. right when night falls. That's weird, I thought. How the hell are they going to implement that? And why? I tried to research the curfew, but nothing else came up. I went back to watching TV and surfing the internet. That was about all I did all day until my wife got home around 4:30. She came and sat next to me on the couch and we talked about her student. "Did you hear anything else about that kid?" I asked her. "No, he was taken to some psychiatric facility after you found him though, because all he would say was to look at the moon. I wonder what happened to him. He's one of my brightest students," she said, concerned. "The police officers got really weird when I said he was talking about the moon, like they knew something I didn't. Also, did you see that there's apparently a citywide curfew?" "Yeah, one of my colleagues showed us an alert on a phone. I wonder what that's about." I tried to look it up, but there weren't any articles about it. I have no idea. Anyway, what are you feeling for dinner? After dinner, we settled on the couch. She started working on grading papers, and I finished up the paperwork for our monthly budget meeting tomorrow morning. The news was playing in the background, but suddenly started making a loud alert noise. "Curfew lifted" started flashing across the bottom of the screen. It looked different than the alert earlier in the day. This one was bright red and stationary, instead of scrolling across the bottom of the screen like announcements usually do. "Well, alright then," my wife mused, before stacking the papers on the side table. "That's it for me. I'm going to bed," she said, and got up off the couch. "I'm right behind you," I said, closing my laptop and following her upstairs. My wife fell asleep quickly, but I was restless. I scrolled on my phone for a while and fell asleep at some point with my phone laying next to me on the pillow. At 3:14 a.m., an Amber Alert type noise started going off, ripping me out of my sleep. I groggily searched for my phone and turned off the sound, trying to adjust the bright screen. "Do not look at the moon. Stay indoors," in all caps is what the alert said. I had dozens of texts and social media messages underneath the alert, all saying, "Check out the full moon tonight. It's beautiful." What the hell is going on, I thought. Confused and sleepy, I rolled over to see if the alert woke my wife, but her side of the bed was empty. I started to worry, thinking about the curfew and weird alert. I got out of bed and wandered around the house, trying to see where she went. I found her, standing on the balcony. I panicked, remembering the alert on my phone, and ran to her, head ducked low. I stood between her and the railing, facing the house. I lifted my head just enough to see her face. Her eyes were wide, pupils completely dilated, fixated upward toward the sky. She had a horrible smile on her face, and her nose was bleeding badly. "Check out the full moon tonight, honey," she whispered in a raspy voice that was not her own. "It's a beauty." I was shocked. "What is happening?" I asked her, shaking her slightly. "What's wrong? Why are you bleeding? Are you hurt?" I kept pressing. She didn't answer, just kept her eyes fixated on the moon. I didn't know what to do. I glanced around the patio, looking for a chair to sit on, when my eyes passed a reflection of the moon in the glass door. I froze, unable to look away from the bright, beautiful moon. I slowly turned around and stood side by side with my wife, staring straight at the moon. My eyes were aching, and I could feel the blood running down my chin from my nose. But I didn't care. I'd never seen anything more beautiful than that moon. There were helicopters buzzing overhead, and I could hear men shouting. But I just couldn't look away from the moon. It sure is a beauty.